Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our latest installment of Talking Marijuana. We are your hosts. I'm Barry Kramer. I am the patient operator of California Patients Alliance. We're a fully accredited Galacta dispensary here in the city of Los Angeles. Come and visit us if you're a patient.
Hi, my name is Yami Bolaños, and I'm patient operator for Pure Life in Hollywood, California. I'm also the president and founder of the Greater Los Angeles Collectors Alliance, which has been setting the standard for medical marijuana in the city of Los Angeles since 2006.
Hear, hear.
Great. And hello, I'm Don Duncan, the California Director of Americans for Safe Access, the nation's leading patients advocacy organization. I'm very happy to introduce, joining us on the phone today, a very special guest.
We're excited.
Mayor Robert Jacob from the city of Sebastopol is on the phone. Mayor Jacob represents the Northern California city of Sebastopol, a beautiful city. And he is also the operator of two medical cannabis collectives and cooperatives here in California, two legal organizations that provide medical cannabis for patients. So he is the first mayor we know of who's also a medical cannabis provider.
Yeah.
So welcome to the show, Robert. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, that's great. We were very excited when the news broke that you were the mayor of Sebastopol. We talked about it here on the show.
We sure did.
We were
so
super
proud of
happy.
you.
So we just want to say that to you in person, that you are a hero of ours. It's really nice to know that advocates are getting as involved in their communities as you are, and to rise to mayorship. We congratulate you.
Garnering the respect of everyone around you, Robert. You're great. You're doing a great job, sweetie. We're all so proud of you.
Thank you so much, Aaron.
So, Robert, tell us about your path from medical marijuana provider to the mayor's desk.
Yeah.
Well, I think really the path was about working with people, specifically disenfranchised communities. For me, the realization that medical cannabis patients are yet another segment of our community, the people who are around us every day, who are underrepresented, don't have loud enough voices, and are underserved. And really, by unifying, the immigrant community, women's groups, labor groups with medical cannabis patients, it really created a forward motion of unity.
That is great. Did you get blowback in Sebastopol because of your association with medical cannabis?
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. Okay, great. Did you get some blowback in Sebastopol because of your association with medical cannabis, or did you find that the community embraced your role in that respect too?
There was definitely some blowback and some concern. I think that Peace Medicine, which is located in Sebastopol, really had a high reputation. Really building the collective, it took a significant effort in understanding different perspectives, different views, from working with the police chief to the more conservative residents to with medical cannabis patients, and really creating a model that brought people together and made medical cannabis access an acceptable topic in our town. So by having the 5 years of Peace Medicine's operation, being a healthy, cooperative, contributing member of the community, it really helps to alleviate concerns for many residents.
That's pretty awesome. Your relationship with the chief of police, the police department, is amicable, I suppose, and was before, and continues to be. Is that a interesting relationship from your perspective as a cannabis provider as well, and having gone through the history in our state of law enforcement and cannabis providers?
It's always been an interesting relationship. We have a police chief who's very open and very interested in carrying out the will of the people and the city council. But the very first meeting that I had after the medical cannabis dispensary ordinance was passed was with the police chief. And I specifically highlighted and underlined any of the security measures, any of the safety or public safety measures in the ordinance, and sat down with the police chief and really took the time to understand what each of those items meant to him and how he saw them being implemented. I think anytime you engage those tough issues around medical cannabis or around elected office, period, directly, you tend to alleviate those concerns and those stressors in the relationship early on in your process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really remarkable the degree to which the industry has developed, and the sort of, I guess, the lack of baggage and even the credibility that brings into public life. It's good to see. You also operate in San Francisco, Spark, a facility in San Francisco that's also very reputable and well thought of in the community, and is in fact one of the first accredited, or rather certified collectives and cooperatives under ACE's patient-focused certification program. And so we're very proud to have that facility. We're looking forward to having Peace and Medicine on board too. When you look at things like the certification in relationship with law enforcement, that seems to be very crucial to the mission of those organizations and to the city. It seems like there's a synergy there.
Well, really, as the executive director of Spark and Peace and Medicine Patient Collectives, it's really great to have a program in place that helps give us a guide of what's expected from others in addition to what we expect from ourselves. But really, as a mayor, as an elected official, as somewhat of a regulator, to know that there's a third-party system in place that we can count on to evaluate and provide some level of oversight to the function, safety, health of collectives, cultivations, labs in our communities is really an alleviating opportunity. So, from both sides of my roles and in perspective, I'm really grateful that the PFC program's in place.
Yeah, it's a great program. It's terrific that ASA has stepped in and is starting this kind of a program. We have in Los Angeles, that's sort of how GLACA came about. And we talk about GLACA every week in our intro, but we don't talk a lot about it during the show. But GLACA is a organization, and we have a set of protocols, what we call loose regulations, that all GLACA accredited clubs have been following since for 8 years, since 2006 now. And it has brought a bit of legitimacy to our fight when we talk to City Council. It gives us a little bit more credibility, but I feel like a national certification program like ACE's jumped in to do is really beneficial for operators. And again, Robert, as an operator, it's really nice to have something to follow that you can say, I'm doing this. I'm doing what you asked.
I'm really watching the staff get excited about the PFC program has been one of the greatest benefits to our organization. They're taking the test. They're getting the online training. They're preparing for the in-person training. They're going to be certified medical marijuana industry employees.
Yeah.
And anytime you can give something like that to your staff and to your team and have them have ownership and feel even better about what they're doing and feeling recognized and legitimized for the effort they're making, it really adds to the culture and the development of a team of employees in any organization.
Oh yeah,
that is so true.
That's fantastic.
So Robert, you represent the city of Sebastopol as their mayor, but you also serve on the League of Cities, which is an organization that represents the interests of cities in the state legislature. And I know you guys have just voted to bring a bill, to sponsor a bill in the state legislature for regulations. And what was really exciting to me about that bill was to see law enforcement and the League of Cities all coming together finally to support regulations. Even if I could take issue here and there with a few of them, seeing those people come to the table for the first time was really exciting. Can you talk a bit about the League of Cities and their sort of new, I guess, more proactive approach to medical cannabis?
Well, I think the League of Cities is really trying to, the best thing is we finally have for the first time the Police Chiefs Association and the League of Cities supporting legislation around the licensing and operations of dispensary facilities in the state. There are some issues that I see in the bill, but I did support the bill initially to get it on the table to begin discussion. I think we have a lot of work ahead of us as advocates, as patient representatives, to ensure that the bill has some very important changes to make it something that's workable and actually increases access. But what we're really looking at is a bill that has a lot of strength, a lot of support, and us finding ways to enhance it and make it more workable to be of benefit to patients in California is really the journey and work ahead of us.
Yeah, yes. Definitely.
No doubt, yeah. So that's exciting stuff with League of Cities. So what's coming next down the pipeline, both in Sebastopol and in California when it comes to cannabis and medical cannabis? Because obviously there's a big push to legalize cannabis in California too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, I think right now, we have to focus on maintaining and enhancing patient access. And how do we do that as dispensary operators within the framework that is existing and the framework that is ahead? In that process, we will all have to develop and change and step up to meet any of those new regulations. But in that process, if we are able to solidify patient access, if we are able to offer better services, more consistent services, and healthy, safe medicine to patients, then we have moved forward. And so I think everyone preparing to look at what they're doing, how they can make it better, prepare to work with local government and state government to create collectives that will exist for decades to come.
It's really you're a collective operator, and we've talked a lot here on the show about what's going on in Washington State. And not only are you a collective operator, but you're an elected official, and you're working with the League of Cities. So you're in kind of a unique position, and in relation to Washington State, we're seeing that as legalization has come to the forefront, medical marijuana and medical patients are sort of being left behind. And I think having someone in a position that's not only an operator of a dispensary, but also on the opposite, let's say,
like
at
you
this
work
point,
both
the
sides of
opposite
the
side.
fence. Yeah.
Working both sides of the fence. That's going to be very important coming up in the future when legalization does happen, because we definitely need to protect the rights that have been fought for so hard over the years of patients. And it's a real shame that we're seeing those rights being kind of trampled in Washington State and just put aside.
It's one of the things I was very excited about the league proposal, is that while there are some shortcomings in that proposal, it actually puts regulation in the Department of Health where intuitively it belongs.
It belongs.
Yes,
absolutely.
Agree with that. That's where it belongs.
I really like that. I admired Tom Amiano's efforts over the years to also try to regulate medical cannabis on a state level, but he and his staff seem really committed to having oversight in the alcoholic beverage control, the Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control, and that just has not worked in Washington.
No, not at all.
And this is really why this bill is important at this time, is because this bill could solidify patient access even with the potential of legalization passing in the near future. But the bill cannot reduce patients' access to physicians to get their recommendations. The bill cannot take away from local economies and local farmers. It's just not something we want to do, is corporatize everything about medical cannabis access.
Right.
And at the end of the day, the bill has to increase access, not decrease access.
Exactly.
And so those are some of the really important items that we're facing in this bill.
That's good stuff.
We know you're probably going to leave us after this segment. You have mayoral business at hand for the day. But I was wondering this week, a resident from Northern California, we're going to talk about it a little later in the show, but Robert Duncan was gave himself up to go to jail. Now,
Yes, Robert Duncan, no relation. Yeah.
No relation to anyone. No relation to you, Robert Jacob, or you, Don Duncan. Just a synthesis. But I wonder, since he was up there in Northern Cal, if you had any, if you knew him at all, and what your reaction is to the fact that, here we are, we have laws in our state that allow for marijuana distribution medically, and this man, young man, is going to jail for 2 years, and all he was a provider in someone else's shop.
Dispensary.
So we have another minute before we take a break. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on Robert.
Well, honestly, people going to jail for a plant, I think, is a foundational issue that we face as medical cannabis advocates, or just disenfranchised community advocates. So we need to look at ways that people are not going to jail for the cultivation, possession of a plant. Really, as we move forward and we create clear, a statewide regulatory system for medical cannabis access, I hope that we will reduce the judicial system burden, that we will create clarity and have less people caught in the crosshairs of confusion in local laws.
I hope so.
Robert, Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to take a break here, and we're going to let you go on with your important day.
Great.
Thank you,
Thanks all for
Thank you,
having me. I
Robert.
appreciate it, and hope to be on again soon.
Thanks so much,
anytime.
man. Hope
Honey,
to have
anytime that you like,
have you on.
honey.
Update us anytime
All
you
right.
like. We'll
Bye-bye,
see you.
honey.
Upcoming shows to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Welcome to FYI. It's Dimitri Young here with Robert Fick. Hey everybody, welcome to Talking Marijuana.
Hi, everybody. Crabman's Rock and Roll Revival featuring Frazier Smith is on the air, in your hair, and going out everywhere around the world.
I'm Gary Garver, live from the John Lovitz Comedy Club.
This is the John Lovitz Podcast Network.
Hi, John Lovitz here. It's time to put laughter back into your life. Check out the John Lovitz Comedy Club, located in the heart of Universal Studios City Walk, Los Angeles, not Orlando. For tickets, go to thejohnlovitzcomedyclub.com.
You are listening to the John Lovitz Podcast Network.
And hey, everybody, welcome back. And we are talking marijuana continually here for an hour,
Don't
as
stop.
we do
Just keep
every
talking.
week.
Keep talking.
Your hosts, Barry and Yami and Don. We just finished talking with the mayor of Sebastopol, Robert Jacob. It was a great little chat with him, and look forward to getting updates from him and seeing how his electedness goes.
Sure. Who would have thought 10 years ago that
No.
the operator of a medical cannabis facility could be elected for anything,
It's
much
amazing.
less mayor?
It's
And
amazing.
sit on the League of Cities.
Yeah.
I'm really impressed with that part.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, Robert's
Well, it's
just
important
doing
for
good
advocates to
things.
rise up and not
Sure.
just be that
Marijuana person.
that voice in the prairie. They need to actually get involved. And
I wonder what noun you were going to use there. The
I'm
prairie.
trying to
The voice in the
figure- I'm
prairie.
trying to figure out what
I
I
think
was
you were
thinking
looking
of.
for wilderness, but prairie works too.
Prairie is good. I'm from Illinois.
Ah,
So.
yeah.
Our president, Obama. I love him. I voted for him. I will freely say that. I really wanted him to be a great president, and he's turned out to be an interesting president. I
On
have
this
yet to
issue, he
make up
has
my
some
mind.
unfulfilled potential.
And on this issue, he's a
How do you like
he's
that
been a
spin?
very bad president on our issue.
I think
actually.
it's bad. He's been bad. I agree.
And yet, under his administration, we have made more advances in the general push of legalization and medical marijuana acceptance than any other president.
But frankly, no thanks to the administration.
But no,
No,
thanks
no
to this
thanks.
administration. There was an article in the New Republic, and says people are still being prosecuted for legal marijuana. Obama hasn't pardoned one of them. Now, this is we're talking about this because I'm going to continue the conversation about Robert Duncan, this young man. Robert Duncan got laid off from his job in TV production. Friend offered him a gig at a medical marijuana dispensary in Northern California. He paid a lawyer $800 to review the company's operations, make sure the outfit was on the right side of state law, which this administration, Obama's administration, said they won't go after people who are following state laws. The lawyer told him he had nothing to worry about. A bad lawyer, I would say. That's the lawyer's problem. A year after Duncan took the job, the Obama administration decided to crack down on the nascent marijuana industry, which is still illegal under the federal code. Duncan, whose story appeared on the Huffington Post this morning, got 2 years in prison after spending an estimated $30,000 in legal fees. The owner of the company got 5 years, and the director got 3.5. This is a guy who just worked at a medical
Right. This is an
marijuana.
operator. He's not a
understand-
grower. He's not a wholesaler. He's just worked
And
there.
actually, HuffPost yesterday, I think, live blogged him giving himself up to go into prison, where he will be for the next 2 years.
And I don't know if a lot of people have seen that. It's worth probably checking out. It's a very onerous moment. I've taken prisoners to surrender before, to be there with them, and there's this big steel door, and it buzzes open, and you
There you
walk
go.
through, and you vanish, and that's it. You're in the system. It's really it's ominous.
He put a piece out in the HuffPost yesterday, and the HuffPost again did this live blog. So if you have any interest at all in seeing what our government's doing to medical marijuana workers, patients, legal citizens, look at the HuffPost, put in Robert Duncan's name, and you will come up with some very interesting articles.
This story should really send a chill across the country, because I think we're in the habit right now in the United States of celebrating the birth of the industry, and marijuana is almost legal in 21 states. We have 21 states and the District of Columbia. We have people working in the medical cannabis industry essentially legally under their state laws, or at least mostly legally under the state laws.
Thinking that they're operating legally.
And
that
all
they're
of those
legal.
people could be Roger Duncan.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All
Robert
of us.
Duncan, yeah.
All of
every
us.
one
We've
of
gone
them,
to
yes.
lawyers. Yami, myself,
Well,
Don. We've all gone to lawyers.
I take issue
and-
with his lawyer. I mean, any lawyer worth his salt should have said to this guy, no, you're breaking federal law.
Exactly.
But he could be excused for thinking he was in a safe space right now, because the Obama administration has said, one of the only signs of progress under this administration has been a statement that if you obey your state law, you're going to be a law enforcement priority.
Right.
So we don't know the backstory on this. I don't know the backstory.
And that's part
what
of
led to it.
the conundrum that Kleinman, there's another article that was out this week in the Washington Monthly by Mark Kleinman, who says that we're going about legalization wrong.
Absolutely.
And one of his arguments dealt with that.
Yeah, because there's a principle called estoppel, where you are tricked into breaking the law by the government.
Right.
You think because of something, somebody in authority says that you're obeying the law, or that you don't have to do something or do have to do something. The principle does not apply legally in court between the federal jurisdiction and the state jurisdiction. You can't have entrapment by estoppel if the state tells you one thing and the Fed does another.
Yeah.
But the principle still applies. The principle applies, and I don't think that we're not talking about a kingpin here. We're not talking about somebody who had a front organization and was selling marijuana all over the country. We're talking here about a guy who worked at the store.
Yeah.
That's not.
That's why this story is so important, and that's why.
And people need to think about this nationwide if they're thinking, well, medical cannabis is legal in my state, and they're issuing dispensary licenses, so we're all good. We're not all good. There's a presidential election in 2 years. Things could get better or worse.
That's very interesting. Mr. Klein's article yesterday, when I was reading it, that said, Mark Kleinman, he said that we could lose everything with the next administration, because the next president could just change his mind on everything, and make it worse for us.
Because none of this is law at the moment. It's all memos. Yeah. It's all, you're allowed to do this. The banking industry is, balked at this very same issue, that they're not getting any law, they're getting a memo that easily could be changed by the next person that sits in there.
Can't be cited in court. You can't go to court and cite a memo. That someone was telling me at one point, within the last year or so, I was debating with a dispensary operator here in California about the need for advocacy work and to stay committed to that. And they said, Don, activism is over. It's business now. And you see a story like this, and you see it's not business.
We know it's not
business for this man and his family.
And Robert Duncan is just the tip of the iceberg in this particular story. This story is about five facts about our Obama administration, who we've made great strides, and I think general public thinks, wow, under the Obama administration, marijuana's doing pretty good. We got 2 legal states. The feds are said they'll stay off. That's a surface.
But that's not the administration. That's the states leading. The states are leading this issue. We published a report through Americans for Safe Access called What's the Cost?, which you can find on our website, that talks about both the human and financial toll of this. This administration has spent vast sums of money to prosecute medical cannabis patients, to interfere in state laws, and the financial and human cost of that is huge. And when you think about the economic situation that most Americans are still in, it's really not acceptable that this administration will be spending so much money and time on marijuana.
Right. Well, it's going to look bad in the future. It is not a great legacy for a very progressive president.
And he's in his second term. He's not facing re-election. This will be a time for the president to step up to the plate.
At the very minimum, to pardon people that are going to jail merely for possession or working at a medical marijuana dispensary, which is legal in their state, to pardon them so they're not spending time in prison would not be the worst thing in the world.
And to remember, Mr. President, they used to smoke pot too. And that if someone had caught you, you wouldn't have never been president of the United States. You need to remember that.
You do.
Somebody every day remember it.
So the 5 facts about our Obama administration, we'll chat a little bit about them, but I can go through them. One, he reversed his position in 2011. At first, the administration pledged it would only go after dispensaries who violate both federal and state law, as Attorney General Eric Holder put it in 2009. Shortly thereafter, that sentiment was codified in the Justice Department's infamous Ogden memo. But in January 2011, the president nominated Michelle Leonhardt, who Tim Dickinson at Rolling Stone calls a holdover from the Bush administration and an anti-medical marijuana hardliner, to head the DEA. She revised the administration's stance on pot, and she went on the offensive. That was a subordinate of the administration. The administration says, we're great, rogue. And then she goes, well, you're great, but I'm not gonna follow your lead.
Yeah. I bet he thinks that that's the one of the worst mistakes that he ever made, was appointing her to that position.
Well, if he did, he could change it.
Sure.
He
could fire her.
He could fire and change it.
Well, maybe he had to fire her.
The second fact about our Obama administration is that he's been tougher than Bush has. And again, we talked about him being the toughest president. Obama's administration brought 153 medical marijuana cases in its first 4 years, according to a June 2013 study from the National Organization for the Reforms of Marijuana Laws, NORML. Bush brought 163, 10 more, in 8 years. At the time of the study, Obama had not granted a single pardon or clemency petition to a medical marijuana defendant. Over 335 defendants had been charged with federal medical marijuana crimes in states where its sale was legal.
And 100 are in prison right now.
And 158 have gone to jail. Gone to jail for this.
Crazy, yeah.
Third fact, the war on pot has cost $300 million. In the first 4.5 years of Obama's presidency, he spent $289 million on combating medical marijuana and prosecuting people like Robert Duncan, according to a report from Americans for Safe Access.
Oh, those guys again.
Those guys. That's 4% of the DEA's 2011 and 2012 budgets. That's how much they spent on locking up people for medical marijuana, which is legal in the state where they reside. Crazy. Another point, legal pot will be a $10 billion industry by 2019. The legal marijuana industry was worth $1.4 billion in 2013. And a recent report by the ArcView Group projects it will hit $2.3 billion in 2014 and $10.2 billion within 5 years. This is the next great American industry, said the market research firm CEO Troy Dayton. So here we have an emerging industry that's employing people, that's giving people employment in a time when we have no employment, that's going to be a $10 billion industry in 5 years, and we don't have movement from our administration.
We don't, and you know, I would call an industry, I mean, obviously the president has a lot to answer for here, but I would call an industry in this regard. We're talking about billions of dollars in revenue on the line, we see support from the medical cannabis and cannabis industry for advocacy work and for activism to help people like Mr. Duncan at historic lows right now. Money from the industry drying up all over. And it's not just with the organization that I work with, but across the board, advocacy organizations are finding that the medical cannabis industry, and I put it in quotes because it's just becoming an industry. Right. It's just really getting its feet wet. And by and large, they're not stepping up to the plate and providing the kind of real funding that, say, energy companies or pharmaceutical companies or healthcare conglomerates would provide to do advocacy work in their field. And part of growing up as an industry means making sure that your constituents and your customers are protected. Right. And I call on industry to do more. I would call on every successful business in the industry to double their support for advocacy efforts.
Another point that brings me back to the Kleinman article in the Washington Monthly is that right now our states are, the experiment is in the states, and the states are gearing up toward financial incentives for this industry to grow. Taxation, just whatever financial commercialization of this industry can be done, that's where the models are heading. And Kleinman theorizes that really this is the time for the federal government to step in and make a solid set of regulations for how this industry is going to advance. It's one of the things this is saying. It's going to be it is going to be a $10 billion industry, and the federal government better get its act together and start regulating it in a proper way, so that it's not geared toward commercialization, but toward health aspects, not just medical health aspects, but the health of our country. You need to have, if you're going to have, we're not lying about what this is. It is a drug, and there are consequences to
all medicine
using it.
All medicine has side
it should be
effects.
regulated.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be ignored and criminalized. It should be regulated.
Nor should it be just traded like a commodity.
And nor should it be just traded like a
we
commodity.
We know that healthcare is a business, right? Healthcare is business. Pharmaceuticals, healthcare, hospitals, they're all businesses. But patient welfare and safety is a part of that business model.
Absolutely.
And so I think he's exactly right. We do not need medical cannabis regulated like a vice. It's not a vice. It's a medicine.
Not a vice.
And it should be regulated
Exactly.
through health and human services kinds of organizations. The last fact is that pot is more popular than Obama. The majority of Americans, 58%, think marijuana should be legal, according to an October Gallup poll. That number spiked 10 points in just a year. Obama's ratings trail at 46%. That's kind of a minor little thing, but it's true. The shift is happening, and this administration is behind the curve and is going to go down in history as being behind the curve, and it had the opportunity to do something.
I'm also a big Obama fan. I voted for him twice. I would vote for him a third time if I had to.
Yeah.
Mainly because Republicans keep putting such horrible people up for a vote. But he has 2 years to turn this around and little to lose.
So nothing to lose.
Yeah, I think that I would call on the president right now to reverse course again and make this thing happen. He could do it. He could reschedule cannabis to Schedule 2 so there could be research and defense in federal court and progress in federal legislation. He could pardon prisoners. He could instruct the Department of Justice to stop enforcement, stop interfering outright. Not vaguely imply they will, but just stop.
And if he were to only do one of those things,
Exactly.
we would love him even more. But he seems to be hesitating on all of that. Let's take a little break. We'll come back after the break. Maybe we'll discuss this Mark Kleinman article and continue the discussion. See you later.
This is the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Upcoming shows to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Welcome to FYI. It's Dimitri Young here with Robert Fick. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Talking Marijuana.
Hi, everybody. Crabman's Rock and Roll Revival featuring Frazier Smith is on the air, in your hair, and going out everywhere around the world.
I'm Gary Garver, live from the John Lovitz Comedy Club.
This is the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Hi, John Lovitz here. It's time to put laughter back into your life. Check out the John Lovitz Comedy Club, located in the heart of Universal Studios City Walk, Los Angeles, not Orlando. For tickets, go to thejohnlovitzcomedyclub.com.
You are listening to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
We are back talking marijuana. We were discussing some articles this week that had come out, and a really important one I think that's come out that people should take a look at is in the Washington Monthly. It is by Mark A.R. Kleinman. I first came on it when I was reading our Los Angeles Times here, and Michael Hilsick, Michael, of the Los Angeles Times was writing about it. So he kind of encapsulates it. I'll read a little bit of that. Mark A. Kleinman is out this week with the single most comprehensive look at the trend toward legalizing pot you're likely to find. He doesn't spend much time on or space on the pros and cons of legalization. Almost anyone can tick those off on the fingers of both hands, but on the right way to do it and the wrong way. The short version, Colorado and Washington are doing it the wrong way, and the federal government's hands-off approach isn't making anything any better. Kleinman's grasp of the topic isn't surprising. He's a professor of public policy at UCLA. He's been a recognized expert on drug policy for years. He's also one of the few people we know who effectively shorted the housing bubble, selling his house long before that, right before that happened. He was smart on that. I don't know if that makes him smart in drugs, but whatever. Washington State hired him to consult on its launch of legal marijuana sales after legalization was passed, though the relationship wasn't always mutually satisfactory. Kleinman's consultancy ended last September, months before legalization took effect. He wasn't especially circumspect about the shortcomings of Washington approach.
Talking now about the state of Washington.
The state of Washington, correct. That's what makes his latest piece in the Washington Monthly so useful. Kleinman observes that legalization by states is here, and it will spread, but he doesn't have much use for the idea that this is a testament to their role as laboratories of democracy. Dr. Frankenstein also had a laboratory. And we know what that came up with after you put peace together after peace. And that's his basic theory.
That is an interesting metaphor for
He
medical cannabis.
writes that
So, you know.
the current trend of state-by-state legislation risks creating a monster. The states are licensing activities that remain felonies under federal law. Notwithstanding the federal government's current stated intention to look the other way, that makes the activities in the state quasi, pseudo, hemi, demi legal, he says.
Wow, huh? Okay.
What happens if a new president decides to get tough? Because none of that is law. None of what's happened so far is law. And so what happens? And that's why he's saying the federal government is failing.
And he's advocating here that the federal government have some guidelines for people for states to follow and how to do this.
Exactly.
Which I think is a great idea. I just don't think it'll ever happen.
And neither does
until
he.
federal law changes.
And neither does he. He says that with this Congress that we have, there's very little.
And it'll be the same with the next Congress. I mean, bills do pass, but I guess I feel like it's a tough pill to swallow for federal lawmakers or people in the Department of Justice to say this activity is illegal and here's how you do it.
Right.
And I think it's fine. I mean, I would do that, but I don't think they will do that. And that's something
it doesn't make sense to them, probably.
No, it doesn't. It does not compute. It's an error in their brain. We were talking about the president before the break and what he could do, and I think we also have to remember Congress, right?
Right.
Congress has a role to play in this, and the most important thing they could do is pass a bill that would let states find their way without federal interference. It'd be great if the Congress would also authorize or command or even create guidelines for the states. But barring that, they could say, we're going to step out and get rid of this quasi-legal status and make give states the right to choose and to regulate medical cannabis. Barney Frank has a bill, the States' Rights to Medical Marijuana Act, that would do that. It would tell the federal government to respect.
So if Barney Frank
laws.
had this bill, that's an old bill. Because Barney Frank's gone.
He is gone. I keep calling it the Barney Frank bill.
Well,
it's
I
still the
remember
States' Rights to Medical Marijuana Act, and it's still pending.
Is there someone carrying that?
There is, and I'm drawing a blank right now because on my notes.
Sorry about that. I'm sorry I put you on the spot.
But the States' Rights bill is crucial to making this more sane. And so people have to tell their congresspeople. What happens on this all the time is that congresspeople see a rational solution. They think, oh, that might work, but people in my district won't support it. I'll be attacked by my opponents. I'll be soft on drugs. There's no safe space. We have to create for Congress a safe space in the districts where they understand that their voters will not punish them for voting for something rational.
Right,
and then they can do things that will help us avoid train wrecks like in Washington State. We can get Congress out of the way. Now, Washington may have screwed up anyway, but it's so crucial. You know, people have to talk to everyone. They have to talk to their city council mayors. They have to talk to their state lawmakers. They've got to talk to their congresspeople.
I think part of that also is, we're slowly legitimizing the business of medical marijuana. Many people that would have cowered from it or thought it was a very illegal industry are now open to it because it's been around now 18 years here in California, and that tends to dilute people's negative feelings about it, especially since after 18 years we don't have a huge
The sky
rise.
is not falling.
The sky is not falling. We don't have a rise in crime. We don't have abuse by children. All the things that are always said that are going to happen. Really, now we've got a long history of this.
The drug driving thing didn't pan out. Remember, there's this whole outcry about, everyone's stoned and driving, car crashes,
accidents.
Forbes also did a piece on that and said, where are all these dead bodies? Where's the body count?
Bodies?
We don't see this happening.
So the legitimization of the industry is a great step forward and gives some of our lawmakers the protection they need to vote for.
They need to hear that
sense.
in their districts. They need to hear it from their people, because the idea that 80% of Americans support medical cannabis doesn't matter if you're up for re-election in a swing district.
And your district is 80% against it.
Yeah. So, we talked to Congress people. We're going to be back in Washington, D.C. April 5th through 7th. And so if you're listening to this broadcast before then, come see us in Washington, D.C., April 5th through the 7th. And on the 7th, we're going to go to Congress. And what a great chance to actually sit down face-to-face with a congressperson or their staff and say, it's okay.
Don doesn't mean talking marijuana is going to Washington. He means ASA,
Americans for Safe Access,
and a large
we
group
hope
of advocates.
About 300 people are going to go to Congress that day with us. And so everyone,
that's going to be amazing.
Check that out on our website at americansforsafeaccess.org. And by the way, talking marijuana is welcome. You guys can come along.
That sounds good. We should live.
Maybe we could get someone to live podcast in Sacramento.
So
want to go, Angelo?
No?
No.
Our engineer's staying here, so I guess we won't go.
We need a really long extension cord.
One of the ways to legitimize our industry is to take the fear out of it and show people how silly the fear is, and that people that are in this industry are trying to do things correctly and offer safe access. It always comes down to that to marijuana. And recently, this past week, there was a commercial that was let out. And I watched the commercial. They said it's the first commercial that's gone on to a major network. And from what I understand, the commercial was done. It was on in New Jersey. And it was on CNN. It was Comcast let it run, and it was on CNN and A&E and the History Channel and the National Geographic Channel. It aired on all of those channels, and it's a minute commercial. We through the miraculous technology that we carry here at the John Lovitz Podcast Theater, we're going to show it to you, and then we'll discuss it a little bit.
Sure.
So, Angelo, anytime you're ready, pop it in.
Roll tape.
Yo, you want sushi? I got sushi. I got the best sushi. This area's dry, man. You know that. I know that. Ain't nobody selling but me. I got tuna. I got salmon. I got sweet shrimp. I got the finest sashimi this area has seen in years. You need me and I need you. Let's make this work. You buy some sashimi, I'll throw in some rice paper, man. Totally free. Gratis. I got everything. Even California rolls, baby.
You wouldn't buy your sushi from this guy, so why would you buy your marijuana from him? MarijuanaDoctors.com is the only service that connects patients with real doctors for medical marijuana recommendations. Simple, confidential, safe. Visit MarijuanaDoctors.com or call 1-866-996-9333. That's MarijuanaDoctors.com, 1-866-996-9333. Book your appointment today.
Okay.
Hey,
so
we're back.
there it was.
We're back. So, isn't that an interesting commercial?
It's clever.
It's clever. It's professional. It's what you see for other
Although
industries.
I would thought to begin with that it was a commercial for a collective.
It's not. It's a doctor.
And it's a doctor because
it's not even a doctor. It's a service that says if you're looking for a doctor and you don't know what's going on out there in the sea of this industry, we can hook you up with a doctor who is
like a
competent, safe,
service?
a referral service.
Okay.
I will say this: some of that sashimi really looked good.
And I don't know much about the company. I mean, we're not really endorsing. We're not really endorsing the company, but I do applaud that.
But it's the first commercial, yeah.
Smart, intelligent way to go about it, and also offering a great service to patients.
And you know, in New Jersey, they have a medical cannabis law, but they're having utility problems.
They have a hard time of making the patient be able to find where they can get their medicine.
It's a little tougher, yeah, because they don't have dispensaries on every corner like we do in Los Angeles. So it's different. It's harder to get medical. It's harder to find a doctor.
They have to wait at the bridge.
This is responding to
it's a long wait.
It's responding to that need. That's great. That's a sign of our industry going in what I think is a good direction.
Yes.
And with
being
some
creative,
good humor,
you know,
great.
yeah. I think that's great.
That
It's
could have
smart
gone in a
advertising.
much worse direction.
Oh, yeah.
I'm imagining all the like drug culture iconography that might have been there.
Yeah.
And I think they did a good job of being clever with it.
So the other thing that Kleinman talks about, and I've read it last night. It's a very lengthy article in the Washington Monthly, and it's a really wonderful article. I was angry at him at times, and at times I had to go, you know what? He is speaking truth here. And basically, one of the main ideas that he was getting across was that the Colorado and Washington model right now are geared toward the commercial model. The states are geared toward making it a commercial enterprise, and the health and safety aspects of it are sort of second tier. He feels that really should be a switch, because as the country comes on board and we get way more people involved in this and different aspects, the Frankenstein aspects of every state, you know, having their own piece of this in their own way, that the federal government at that point, it will be too late for them to come in and go, it will be too late for them because the industry will have grown like the liquor industry to have a lot of money.
And
right
power.
now, it doesn't have organized money and lobbyists other than
That's
great
a very
people
interesting.
like you.
But listen, we're not as powerful as say the alcohol lobby.
Right, and the alcohol lobby is powerful
It's
because
actually an
of the
interesting
money
point
that
he
they
makes
have.
is that they want to beat us to the punch. They want to head us off at the pass in a sense, and
so-
get rules in
yeah.
place before we're strong enough and influential
To make
enough
our
to do it
own
ourselves.
rules, yeah.
To make it ourselves and make sure that we won't be regulated tightly by the government.
Right.
I don't love the idea of tight regulation, but in this kind of an industry, I think, to be honest, you have to admit that it needs regulation and it needs some oversight. Bare bones, but let's do it.
For the safety issues, for sure, and to prevent fraud, but there's also a perception issue that we sometimes forget about, and when it comes to regulation and standards, whether it be through the certification program that we were talking to Robert about, or state laws or federal laws. It helps reassure people in the community who aren't cannabis people and are maybe ambivalent on this topic. It helps to reassure them that this is going to be okay. And that means pushing the issue forward, access forward, more states, more patients. And so being regulated is a service to patients because it normalizes and desensitizes people and makes it okay.
I love it. Even when you say it, it sounds to me like that's our great topic, but on the opposite side, they're like, no, if we regulate it, that means we're giving them our blessing, and everyone's going to look at us like we're horrible people that we said marijuana is good,
Sure. And that's exactly what's happening in California right now with this League of Cities bill, right? For the first time, the League of Cities that has traditionally opposed any sort of regulation and law enforcement have opposed regulation, they both did it because they didn't want to give their tacit blessing to medical cannabis. And now they're coming around and saying, if we don't do it, somebody
else will. Yeah,
people will do it, right?
So instead of we can't beat them, let's join them.
And that's what I'm hearing in this article too. This guy's saying, hey, if we better get ahead of this, or we're going to be playing catch up. And he's probably right.
Do you think lawmakers are? Is there a tipping point for lawmakers where they start to go, you know what, we should get on the right side of this issue?
I think so, and I don't know where that is. Yeah. I don't know. I don't feel like we're there right now, but maybe we're close.
We talked about a tipping point about 6 months ago when Gupta
right?
Talked about it.
And that was
I'd
a
say
huge
that was a
point.
huge tipping point.
We've talked
tipping
about
points
that.
Don't happen. You make them.
You make
it's
them.
not like Sanjay Gupta didn't say that. It's a tipping point.
I can say
make
that
it a tipping
personally, after Sanjay's announcement that the government had been, lying to us, whatever, I go to family gigs. I was telling this the other day, we were talking about this. I go to family gigs where usually I just stay really quiet and don't talk about my industry or what I do.
Right.
Now I have people going, hey, you need to talk to. Hey, since Sanjay came out, I'm the consultant at all the family gigs, okay? And after I was like this, not really bringing up my subject because, I come from a large Hispanic family. They're professionals, they're educators, so I'm like this. I'm not going to really push my subject. The young kids all want samples, but since Sanjay came out, I have my relatives, the older people, everyone looks at me with a different
the industry
now,
went up a notch in respect.
It did. I think so. Yeah.
It's funny how opinions are so led by that, right?
Let's take a little break. We'll come back, continue this conversation, talk a little bit about our dope of the week. We had a couple of winners this week, but let's come back and we'll see y'all on the other side of this station identification.
You are listening to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Upcoming shows to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Welcome to FY. It's Dimitri Young here with Robert Fick. Hey everybody, welcome to Talking Marijuana.
Hi everybody, Crabman's Rock and Roll Revival featuring Frazier Smith is on the air, in your hair, and going out everywhere around the world.
I'm Gary Garver, live from the John Lovitz Comedy Club.
This is the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Hi, John Lovitz here. It's time to put laughter back into your life. Check out the John Lovitz Comedy Club, located in the heart of Universal Studios City Walk, Los Angeles, not Orlando. For tickets, go to thejohnlovitzcomedyclub.com.
You are listening to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Hey, Hey, we're back. It's Barry, Yami, and Don. And Yami, you were talking about how your family accepts it a little bit more. And
Well,
now
yeah, they look at me with a little bit more respect. It's. I think it was a big tipping point. I really do think that brought a lot of respect to us.
I find it as an operator. I've talked about this a little bit in the past couple of weeks, but I've been seeing a steady pickup of new patients that have never, or maybe since like the 1970s, haven't really dealt with marijuana in their lives. And these new patients are coming in mostly into my establishment for Rick Simpson oil, which we carry, and it's the high concentrate, which it's in the news a lot now. Charlotte's Web is a very similar elixir that is made with a high CBD strain and is helping cancer patients, epileptic patients, all kinds of patients.
Really remarkable stuff.
It's really remarkable, and because the acceptance on CNN and in Forbes magazine and New York Times and LA Times, we're all talking about this issue now. We've gotten a steady flow. This week alone, I saw a father with a 3-year-old daughter who has a brain tumor. I saw a friend who came in for his to find out information on the Rick Simpson for his friend who has a brain tumor and is kind of hopelessly given up on all of regular medical's ability to help him. We had another father with a child who was suffering from cancer. I mean, it's really been incredible, and strikes home to me how we really need to get the ball rolling faster than it's been going to regulate so that people are able to do this. I also see many, many articles about families just lifting up their lives and moving to states that will allow their children or their loved one or their friends or whoever to use marijuana, and we need to get that going on across the whole country. We
Absolutely.
really do. But the pickup in our patients of new people coming to this has certainly increased. It's so noticeable.
I'm actually
the questions
encouraged.
that the patients ask these days too are so different. You know, what gets you the highest? That was like the question that
was
what's like your
of
highest,
course.
you know. And now it's so different. Now they want to know, different information.
I can't sleep.
You know, I can't sleep.
Would you have something that
so
can
it's
help
very
me sleep?
different now.
People asking, do you have high CBD? Well,
high CBD strains.
A few years ago, nobody knew what CBD was.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was all about THC and getting high. Now it's where people are evolving.
They are evolving.
It's becoming more mainstream.
It's
and
becoming more mainstream. I have
legitimate.
I have a lot of patients that come in and say, well, what's the percentage of THC in this strain that you're offering me? At my particular dispensary, I don't test the medicine. If the grower has tested it, I will use that information, but I don't use a service because for me, at this point in the game, we don't have a industry standard for that, and a lot of the testing places are
That's coming soon.
Whatever. I'm looking forward to the day when there's an industry standard, because it is great that patients are coming in and asking that. I don't feel that they know, even if I said, it's 23%, the only thing they know is that it's in the 20s, and that somehow that's a better number.
That equals higher
than 13%. There's no real way to quantify what
higher's
these things
not always
are.
better. But
Higher's not always
better. Yeah.
And so the intricacies, the details of these are not in, but it's great that the questions are being asked. I usually explain to my patients why I feel the way I feel about testing, and it's a great dialogue that we start to have. But it's super that people are looking out for that. That's really what.
Everything's changing. The whole conversation's changing. Everyone's more educated on the subject.
Except our governor.
Yeah, I know.
Except our governor, Jerry Brown, on Meet the Press. This
Governor
week I have some
Moonbeam,
quotes, so I got to
good
California,
stuff.
it's Governor Moonbeam, right?
Governor Moonbeam.
You know what? I think he's always right. He's never liked that name, I don't think. And
well,
he
we're gonna call
certainly
him that
doesn't
anyway.
want to be called that, but he was certainly up in the moonbeams this week. He was on Meet the Press. They were talking about how California is doing pretty well. We've got we've recovered
budget surplus
on And so they talked to him about all these great California questions.
Everything but water, right?
Everything but water.
Well, Southern California has lots of water.
Oh, thanks for that.
Well, I'm up the
Northern
north.
Cal that we need.
Somebody up north got their pockets lined and sent all the water down to
So
Southern
meet the press
California.
host, David Gregory. He asked Brown about the possibility of legalized recreational marijuana use in California, which Gregory described as unthinkable prospect 40 years ago when he was governor. Brown responded that he was watching Colorado and Washington, the two states currently have legalized recreational marijuana use, and that California's medical marijuana policies were very close to what these states are doing. I thought that was a crazy statement right off the bat because we are not close to legalization in any way, shape, or form, and our medical marijuana program is not state regulated, and we are not close to that. We're getting closer, but we're not there.
To his defense, a lot of people in Los Angeles act like, legalization is a thing. So anyway.
I'd really like those two states to show us how it's going to work, he said. He also expressed worry about the tendency to go to extremes. After legalization, he said, if there's advertising and legitimacy, how many people can get stoned and still have a great state or a great nation? The world's a pretty dangerous, very competitive place, and I think we need to stay alert. If not 24 hours a day, more than some of the potheads might be able to put it together. That's what he said.
See, that an elected official should not feel comfortable disparaging his constituents like that.
Yeah, that's right, because there's a lot of potheads in California.
50%.
Yeah, no, that's
and he's hoping to run for a fourth term.
I don't think he wants to win a fourth term in California, because why would he make that kind of statement?
Well, I still don't think that politicians think this is the make or break issue.
Nor do they think
we're
a voting constituency with good cause, because the last statewide vote we had on marijuana legalization, we lost. So he may be thinking, these guys don't matter, but that's a sort of a snarky, silly thing for a governor to say. And generally, I like the governor.
I like him too, and he's done a lot of great things for our state since.
But that's really a silly thing to say. And if you substitute any other group into that, to say this particular group is not ready to be alert and have a safe society, it would be decried across the board as racism or bigotry or what have you. If Dew went on and said that a certain religion or a certain ethnic group weren't ready to be safe, weren't alert enough to be safe, nobody would stand for that.
And again, it's just pie in the sky talking, because the proof, the fact that his state for 18 years has had a medical marijuana program,
and it's fine.
And we don't. Yes, we have people getting caught up in the crossfire, and that's a tragedy, and they're in jails. But we don't have a rise in crime. We don't have an epidemic of children being able to smoke marijuana. So in his own state, it's very clear that what he said was ignorant.
It is, and it's a silly stereotype.
Silly stereotype, of course.
But
we have
to
people
be
drinking all day long. Why should we?
They're not being very
goodness,
alert,
we could get attacked any day by China, and we have people drinking at 3 p.m. at a restaurant. We should get some laws against that or something.
They should. If China is going to attack, and I hope they don't, but if they do, they better not do it in happy hour. That would be so wrong.
Correct, Jerry. That's 1 hour of your 24 hours.
Because
before he went out there and said that.
Down, like we can't afford full price for drinks.
Yeah, many governors around the country though are watching Colorado and Washington.
No doubt.
And one of the things they're watching is the cha-ching coming into their coffers as they go through stuff. So Jerry was going to be one of our dopes of the week.
Runner-up.
Yes. He was a runner-up though.
Yeah, of course.
There was a dope this week that really, to me, takes me back to the pot brownie cop who thought he was dying when he was just the ignorance of our law enforcement. Now this guy, okay, let's go to it. He was the chief of police in a Maryland town, and in Maryland they were having a judicial proceedings committee. Where they were talking about the pros and cons of legalization. It was open to the public. There were about 100 people that spoke, and his name is Annapolis Police Chief Michael A. Pristoop. And I emphasize the stoop as in stupid. He thought he came prepared when he testified before this state panel. And in researching his testimony against the two bills that they were considering, he had found a news article to illustrate the risks of legalization. 37 people in Colorado, he said, had died of marijuana overdoses on the very day that state legalized pot. Angelo is gone in the booth. Angelo's down in the booth. I don't think we're going to have anything.
It was all over
going.
Facebook, too.
Yeah, it was all over Facebook.
So when he said it, everyone in the room dropped their laptops, said Senator Raskin, who he was one of the guys that proposing one of the legislation for legalization. The trouble is with the police chief Pristoop, is that the facts were about as close to the truth as oregano is to pot. After a quick Google search, Raskin, the sponsor of the legalization bill, advised the chief that the Colorado overdose story, despite its deadpan delivery, had been made for laughs by the Daily Current, an online comedy magazine. I had not seen the spoof, but it was self-evidently a parody, said Raskin. In the absence of real data, internet hoaxes are becoming marijuana prohibitionists' last stand. We're talking about a chief of police who's coming with data and has no legitimate data, just an article that he read.
When he's confronted with that, he said to them, well, I'm just going to go with the information that was provided to me.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I hope somebody got a
fired.
stern talking to or fired over giving this guy basically what is
Actually, they should...
Stoop. Give him a joke.
It's a joke, and they handed me this joke, and he says...
I think they had to give him a prize, whoever did it, because it embarrassed the hell out of him. That's for damn sure.
Well, you know,
dumb.
It made his testimony just null and void. I mean, if you're the chief of police and you don't have the wherewithal to do the correct investigatory principles to find out that your facts
you're supposed to look
are
into
straight,
things,
which anybody can do in 2 seconds on Google with that. Really, 37 people died. Let's see what happened. So on Tuesday, he apologized for the mistake. He admitted in a news release that he had been duped. I apologize for the information I provided concerning the deaths. I believe the information I obtained was accurate, but I now know the story is nothing more than an urban legend. No, Mr. Pristoop, it is not an urban legend. It is a lie. It is a joke that was in one place on the whole world. Right. This does not take away from the other facts presented in the opposition to legal for the good of Maryland. And anyway, one of his cohorts said his numbers are up in smoke, just trying to kind of laugh it off as a silly thing. So that guy definitely, he's going to go on our wall.
I know, what a dumb
for stupidity.
37, and the articles went on to say, and he read too, that there was people, and that more were expected to die because there was comas and stuff, and he believed it. I just can't even believe how ignorant.
It's not only ignorant; he wanted to believe it so that he could come and make this great point. To say,
there was an interesting phenomenon that happened that day in Colorado. These articles come from the first day of legal sales in Colorado, and the other one said the state sold out of marijuana, which I thought was a funnier and perhaps less gruesome.
And was a little more true because there might have been a dispensary here or there that ran out of this or that.
But there are these funny. It's a funny trend we're seeing now in reporting in general and in cannabis. Is these sort of
like a tongue-in-cheek thing, where they're just making fun of the people that are reading them.
I know one of the growers in Colorado who's part of the industry there, and he was laughing and said that they're nowhere close to running out of pot in Colorado. In fact, they've got too much on hand.
Absolutely, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
And apparently nowhere close to running out of pot smokers.
Nowhere close to.
Well, when you hear things that sound outrageous, do a little checking on Google. Make sure there's not just one source for that outrageousness.
You might want to look up the paper, too.
You might want to look up to make sure what it was.
The Onion's a bad one, too. I got duped with one of those. I thought there was raids in Colorado on
that's true.
December 29th. I was like, wow, they're raiding in Colorado. No, they're not. Oh, okay.
Another hoax.
Another hoax.
Yeah.
But not too much research will allow you to not be so stupid publicly. With your friends, it's okay.
Don't be Pristoop.
Right?
Well, we've come to an end of another Talking Marijuana episode. We had a wonderful guest. I just want to give a shout out and thank him again to Robert Jacob for coming in. He's the mayor of Sebastopol. He's the operator of 2 dispensaries.
He's our friend.
And he's a good guy.
He's a good guy. He's a good friend.
Peace and Medicine and Spark in San Francisco.
Peace and Medicine and Spark.
2 outstanding organizations.
Outstanding organizations. Go visit them.
Next week we have Diane Wattles-Goldstein.
And one of our favorite guests, Diane Wattles-Goldstein from LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, and we'll be chatting with her about a lot of legal issues and the shame of law enforcement, although that's not what she only does. She was a law enforcement officer, and she was not shameful. Others are shameful, and she will expose them. And we will leave now because we're done with this hour. Thanks, everybody. Pura vida.
You are listening to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Upcoming shows to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Welcome to FYI. It's Dimitri Young here with Robert Fick. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Talking Marijuana.
Hi, everybody. Crabman's Rock and Roll Revival featuring Frazier Smith is on the air, in your hair, and going out everywhere around the world.
I'm Gary Garver, live from the John Lovitz Comedy Club.
This is the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.